priesthoods, who are not Hebrew people. They're other people. They're priesthood people who came in and made a ritual code, kept it secret from the commoners, and called it a language. That's even more dangerous. Sorry, not sorry. Like, you're not winning any fans over at my house by saying, well, it was a coded literary thing just for the scribes. Yeah, fuck you. That it's ritual. It's not language. If nobody's saying it, nobody's reading it, but the scribes are doing it in secret, dude, that's called occult ritual code. That's priesthood code. That's not language. Like, stop playing games.
You understand? What? No answer? You don't really think that you were gonna get through this without being punished now, did you?
I don't want to kill you people. Just want to make that clear from the get-go. I want you to work for me, and you can't do that if you're fucking dead now, can you?
Hi, and welcome to our Bible study channel.
Energy. Energy. You cannot fuck with this. Energy. You cannot fuck with this energy. Love to all those in the session, all of those who are listening. Don't miss the message, judging me. You cannot fuck with this energy. Energy.
These are videos that go pretty in depth. First thing you should probably do is pause and read our 12 rules for reading biblical text. And if you don't like the 12 rules or you don't understand the 12 rules, well, I don't have time to explain them all. Go back to the book that I wrote and uploaded on this channel, which takes you through the entire arc and how we made these quote-unquote 12 rules as a framework of what we found after 7 years digging meticulously and carefully through the text. So if you're confused, go do that. If I refer back, well, that's probably because we actually post these things in order. So they're all done in series. And if you jump in at the middle of a series without any schema or background knowledge, and you get all pissed off, well, that's also not our problem. This is a group where we go line by line, scroll by scroll through the text. Warning, we are not language sensitive, so if you can't handle some cussing, it's not the place for you. We also do not endorse nor approve of pretty much any mainstream theology. So if you're looking for that, also definitely not the place for you. We do a video about the characters that we use in our Bible study series. And the reason we do this is sort of so that they can kind of get in your head. So we do have a video explaining why we chose the people we chose and how their sort of energy characteristics go along with the biblical characters to modernize it for people so they know what the heck we're reading. Clearly, the Roman Church was not doing their job and looking for the lost sheep of the reunited House of David. So that's what we're doing, okay? We're taking that away from them because they screwed it up. The brilliant rabbis also down there in Babylon are also not looking for the lost sheep of the reunited kingdom of David. So you're not going to hear, let's follow Rome. And you're not going to hear, let's follow the rabbis. on this channel. Because, sorry, not sorry, but the Bible wasn't actually written for the corrupt Levitical priesthood post Babylon and Persia to read it through their little janky books. And it also wasn't written to be read through the eyes of pagan 4th century church fathers. So we're not doing that either. You guys can both have a seat. Oddly enough, the Bible also wasn't written to be read through the eyes of some dumbass scholars with pieces of paper that say they're smarter than everyone, but have never seen a Davidic covenant in their life. Not written for them either. You know who it's written for? It's written for the reunited house of David, who are actually in covenant and are actually the sheep. That's who it's written for. That's why nobody else can understand what the heck's going on. What you are going to hear is what you're supposed to hear, which is, let's follow the king. And let's get started.
So, we are going to war. Yes.
Okay, so we are going to do, welcome. We are going to do our very last, I hope so, our last segment in a 3-segment sudden series, which means I got a question and I went off on a tangent. And it's a lot more than you bargained for, I know. But I kind of wanted to wrap up the last 2 with just some final thoughts that I sort of left out. So this is kind of, hopefully it'll be short, but you know me, I always say it's short and it's never short, but let's see how we do. So if we begin to try to get our brains deprogrammed and think of Hebrew as a people, not a language, here are these implications of not only the dimensional piece, but also the language piece in putting those together. So like break it down into like kindergarten terms. Here we go. Or maybe 5th grade, I don't know. But if we do the literacy-based audit of the Hebrew language claim, and I'm just going to whip through and read these really quickly. The principle of all literacy and language that you can't get around is you cannot write a word that you have never heard, never spoken, and never read. Period. Like there's no getting around that, okay? Try as you might, you can't write a valid word that you've never heard, spoken, or read. So since this quote-unquote magical ancient Hebrew lacked a strict, or not strict, but yeah, strict, organized phoneme to grapheme system, a systematic way of looking at letters. It needs rules to the system so that, PH says, right? You need that coded, standardized system of phonemes to graphemes, okay? If you don't have that, there's no way to decode the infrastructure. And I want to throw in here, everyone talks about no vowels, no vowels, no vowels. And vowels have just the 5 we use. And trust me, there's more in other languages. There's more sounds than just the English vowels. But even those combinations of those make so many endless different sounds within our standardized system of phoneme to grapheme English. And now start adding all the other vowel sounds that you find all over the world, many of which I can't say. Then add additional consonants. Like there's another assumption that I haven't even brought up here, that the consonants found in these ancient, this consonant-backed theory, that those were the only consonants in that word, right? So let's say they're like, oh, here's an ancient Hebrew word, and you can see the consonants, but there's no vowels. Well, what if those aren't all the consonants? Go back to our sun card, right? There's just an S with no N and no U. So how do we know those are even the only consonants in that word? Like we don't know any of this information, right? So there's no infrastructure for a language. So if there's no evidence of a standardized spoken Hebrew language in early Israelite history, there's certainly no evidence of a standardized written language. So what was going on according to the evidence we currently have? Well, the early Israelite people spoke regional Northwest Semitic dialects, like Canaanite, Phoenician, Moabite, all those things. So they had dialects within the Semitic system of languages. Go back to History Shorts. So the writing system that they used was Phoenician derived, not uniquely, quote unquote, Hebrew. Biblical Hebrew language, not people, right? Remember we did the difference between biblical Hebrew people, biblical Hebrew language. Well, this biblical Hebrew language mythos is a literary construct shaped by scribes, not a vernacular language, oral or written. So if it's a literary construct shaped by scribes, but it still has no vowels, you know, they'll say, scholars will say things like, well, they spoke ancient Hebrew. No. If it's a literary construct of only consonant coded words, and it was done only by the scribes, that's not a language. You'll often hear, well, regular people didn't speak it or read it. It was just this special code for the scribes and the priests. Well, a special code that has no vowels for the scribes and the priests, it's not a fucking language. It's ritual code is what it is, because it's secret. It's not disseminated among the people. Nobody's walking around speaking it. They're certainly not handing out the scrolls for people to read it. So then what we have is not an ancient Hebrew language. What we have, scholars, is a bunch of ancient Hebrew priesthoods, who are not Hebrew people. They're other people. They're priesthood people who came in and made a ritual code, kept it secret from the commoners, and called it a language.
Knock, knock. Who's there? Butter. Butter who? Well, you better get out your umbrellas because it is about to goddamn rain.
And people are being taught how to work the system, and they're going to get devoured over here because the church isn't teaching this. Okay? Because the church is this.
You ruled the roost. You built something. You thought you were safe. I get it. But the word is out. You are not safe, not even fucking close. In fact, you are fucked. We invested a lot so you would know who I am and what I can do.
Remove. Choking on the blood in the mighty name of Jesus Christ.
Did you hear that?
That's even more dangerous. Sorry, not sorry. Like, you're not winning any fans over at my house by saying, well, it was a coded literary thing just for the scribes. Yeah, fuck you. That it's ritual. It's not language. If nobody's saying it, nobody's reading it, but the scribes are doing it in secret, dude, that's called occult ritual code. That's priesthood code. That's not language. Like, stop playing games. So the Masoretic vowel system was added to this magical ritual code centuries later. And it retrofitted modern phonology into the ritual code. That's what they did. They put phonology into the ritual code. Not the language, the ritual code. So Hebrew then functioned as a priestly ritual, not a literary system. And what do you use ritual code for? Rabbis, priesthood, scholars looking at you. Well, ritual code is used for invocation of entities, blood rituals, sacrifice rituals, control of the people, janky ass secret society shit. That's ritual code. It's not communication. Unless you're communicating with the janky ass entities from Egypt, maybe that. So this priesthood, modern priesthood, which includes rabbis looking at you and includes Rome looking at you, and Rome is all the way from the janky ass Catholic Church all the way through the evangelicals looking at all y'all. Y'all are Rome. They're using this label of Hebrew as branding, not infrastructure or pedagogy. This language wasn't for teaching. This language wasn't for communication. This language was ritual code for the priesthood. That's what it was. So the story is that the Septuagint, or the Greek, right? They wrote the Greek. Here's the argument. The Greek Septuagint is a translation from the ancient Hebrew that somehow got lost. So we have scrolls that don't exist with a language that wasn't developed. So we've got magical language and magical scrolls, and all of that, all the evidence for any of those, the language or the scrolls, all of that somehow got lost. But what they had it back in the day, and they used that stuff that somehow got lost to write the Septuagint. That's the argument. So they made a translation into Greek from a language that didn't fucking exist. So we've got a language that doesn't exist, and we translated it into Greek. That's their story, and they're sticking to it. I say, sorry, not sorry, the Bible was written in Greek. Period. So the Septuagint, what it did was it gave linguistic form, okay, a linguistic phonological system of rules to scattered oral traditions and ritual edits. That's what happened. The New Testament was written in Greek, which at the time was a fully phonological, standardized language. Okay? So now you've got all of these regional dialects, regional stories, regional ritual scrolls, and from different people, all getting collected and put into Greek. But all of that clusterfuckery of language pieces and in different, that wasn't one language. It was a mess of languages and dialects that didn't have phonological structure. Okay? So they took all of this ideas and non-phonological structure stuff and put it into Greek. That's what happened. So these claims of early Hebrew scrolls, these are projections. This shit's made up. It's not a forensic, historical, archaeological, or even language acquisition possible reality, which is why I call them the Bigfoot scrolls. Modern Hebrew is a 19th century reconstruction, not a continuation of ancient speech. Okay? So Hebrew's a people group, not a language. The Bible's written in Greek, especially post-exile. So what came before the Greek Septuagint was simply ritual fragments oral dialects, scribal overlays. That's what it was. Phoenician symbology, conceptual, phonological language patterns, stories, fragments, and symbols. That's what this was. From all different regions, all different people groups, and all different dialects within this Semitic language umbrella. That's what it was. Excuse me. And they took all that and moved it and translated all this stuff from all these different groups and all these different dialects and all these different languages and all these different fragments and all this, and they put in all these different political motive groups, and they put it and collected it into the Septuagint. Because without phonological scaffolding, okay, that one-to-one correspondence system of sound to sight, without that system, that stable, standardized system of code, you have ritual encryption, not literacy, which means it's not a language. So that's what happened. So then what do we do? What do we do? What do we do to decode the framework? Well, since this went around in approximately, they started to write all this shit down in like the 600-ishes BC, ballpark figure, okay? Ballpark figure. We need to identify the factions that were active around the 6th century BC and beyond, all the way up to today. Okay, that's the first thing we need to do. But if we go back, right, and put ourselves, in like Jesus times, we've got Babylonian priesthood in that little 500-year span from post-Babylon to Jesus. We've got Babylonian priesthoods. We've got Persian imperial scribes. We've got Judean temple elites. Now, Judean is not bloodline Judah. Judea is a region, not a bloodline. Okay, so Judean locational temple elites. We've got Sumerian cult rivals, right? That middle area, we've got Galilee, Samaria, and then our Jerusalem, Judea area. Within this whole area, we still haven't even gotten to the Sumerians in the north yet. And those cults and those rivals and those registry holders or not, and who these people were and what they believed, they're in there. And we've got our Davidic covenant holders. And that's just starting. That's not even getting to Pharisee versus Sadducee versus, Sakari versus whatever the hell. Like we're just getting warmed up here. We got all these hands in the pie. So while we're reading text, assuming it started to get collected and pulled together around the 6th century and beyond, 5th century and beyond, then what we need to do is start investigating political and ritual motives of all these groups and more. Some of those, just some, are control of temple access, redaction of oral traditions, dimensional possession or jurisdictional overrides via blood rituals and scroll tampering. That waffle zone, like we talked about, Aram was that waffle zone. So this is this dimensional back and forth waffle, right, of these areas. Like Aram's a big one. There's others, but that's a big one. We have to understand occult. We have to understand ritual infrastructure and language, all of those things, and how it was just baked in to the worldview and society of those times. And I'm going to tell you, the occult and ritual infrastructure from back then really hasn't changed. So when I'm telling you about ancient 1st century occult, I'm also talking about modern occult and ritual. It's all, it may look different. They might put a pretty new label on it. They might sweeten the deal for you. But when you dig down beneath it, it's all the same shit. that we're dealing with now in the supernatural floor, if you in the grid system, same characters, guys, same character, didn't change magically. It's still there. The covenants are the same, the occult is the same, and the ritual infrastructure is the same. We're still fighting. Okay? Hasatan didn't just say, oh, well, I guess Jesus won. Let's forget it. No, we are still at war. It is unfolding as we speak. The kingdom's not like, hopefully you get a ticket to heaven when you die and go to the right place. Like, that's the biggest sedative, emotional sedative that I could think of to give the people. Just be nice and hopefully go to the right place. Believe this list of shit and you get to the right place. Say the right words. Like, and hopefully one day. And everyone's sitting around with their thumb up their ass waiting for one day based on emotion and belief. When actually the occult ritual infrastructure is unfolding every day all around us. And most people are illiterate of it. Even me. I'm not even an expert. And I'm in the middle of the shit. And I can't even figure it out half the time. So this is a piece that needs to start being paid attention to. And the implications of this piece. So we need to examine any ancient fragments that pop up, right? 500, 600 BC, anything that comes before that start popping up. We need to examine these fragments within this framework and say, where does it fit? But we can no longer go back and say, well, in 900 BC, they wrote this, right? The writing part, the language writing, systematic language we talked about last time, okay? The actual written language came about with Greek. Before that, it was ritual code. So anything before that, we need to be looking at these fragments, viewing it from occult and ritual infrastructure and language, and analyzing it within this framework of they pulled all this mishmash of shit together in the 600s and beyond. Okay? And while they're pulling it together, the people who are pulling it together have different ideas, different motivations, different rituals, different occult allegiances, different factions of people, different dialects. All that's coming into play, but it converges in this 600 or 500 or 400 BC when Greek comes on the scene. And they're like, oh shit, now we have a systematic language to decode all of our regional dialects, all of our ritual, all of our oral traditions, all of our stories, all of our beliefs. Let's get it into Greek. So because we have a language to put all this stuff in now. So if you see it that way, it changes the whole paradigm. But it still fits. It still works, right? Does that make sense? So anything that pops up prior to this date, we have to start examining these fragments and see where it fits into these groups, these political motivations, these pictures, the history, the ritual, all that. And we're not looking at these for theology or to justify anything. We're looking for linguistic, ritual, and registry or covenant clues. That's what we're doing. We have to decode what was ritual, oral tradition, regional dialects or regional traditions, political motives, and try to dig through all that and figure out what was here before they edited it. What was here before they ritualized it? Let's burn all the fucking chaff off the wheat and find the wheat, that little kernel of truth buried amidst this mess. Burn off the chaff to find the wheat. What does that look like? Because at least my goal is to move from covenant to theology, not theology to covenant. So I challenge that we have to be open-minded enough to allow for our dearly held beliefs to get totally detonated in order to find the truth. And we have to be flexible enough to change our theology if warranted, building up, standing loyal, standing firm in that covenant, in faith, when everything's blowing up all around you, and go, okay, I'm still in covenant. And I'm doing this to find my covenant so I can stay loyal to my covenant. The more I learn, the more my covenant becomes clear. And that's okay. James didn't say you have to automatically do that. James said, start here and you'll learn more as you go. So this is a process, guys. This is not a one-time, say some magic words, wave some shit in the air, put some fucking water on your head and you're good. Like, this is a process to dig out the covenant. So building theology or beliefs from that place of covenant, rather than what the model has been so far throughout history, which is being spoon-fed a theology and letting that determine our covenant. Not the kings, not the learned, not the Pharisees, and all these swanky people. Thank goodness God is giving it to the common dumbass.
Energy. Energy. You cannot fuck with this. Energy. You cannot fuck with this energy. Love the doodles in the steps. All of those who are listening. Don't miss the message, judging me. You cannot fuck with this energy. Energy.